A teenage girl vanishes. Her fate a mystery for 40 years.
It's a nagging, gnawing feeling why she disappeared or what exactly happened to her.
A case New England's Unsolved has covered for decades.
But to this day, Judy Chartier's car has never turned up.
The girl's family never getting answers.
Just want to find out who done it and let them pay for what they did.
But investigators never giving up.
And we never let up on our commitment to bringing some closure to these incidents.
This has really been an open wound for us.
Finally now, a break in the case.
Finding her and being able to put her to rest gives us partial closure.
But big questions still linger as New England's Unsolved follows the trail. Finding Judy Chartier. Here now, Boston 25 News reporter Bob Ward.
For nearly 40 years, the disappearance of Judy Chartier was one of New England's most enduring and frustrating mysteries. But now, a remarkable set of recent discoveries and some incredible answers. This is a case we've been following for years, and here's how we got there. Judy Chartier vanished on June 5th, 1982. She went to a party in Billerica, and she never came home. In 2001, I first featured her case on New England's Unsolved. In 2012, a potential breakthrough. Bones discovered on property that Judy's family once owned. It was a dead end. The bones belonged to an animal. Finally, in November, a real bombshell. Judy's car found at the bottom of the Concord River in Billerica. Within days, confirmation that Judy herself was found near the car. Right now, let's go back to the very beginning. The Judy Chartier case was one of the very first we ever featured on New England's Unsolved. 20 years ago, in the winter of 2001, we traveled to Limestone, Maine, near the Canadian border to talk to Judy's parents. At the time, Judy had been missing for 18 years, but her parents remembered the night they last saw their daughter as if it happened the day before.
What really happened to Judy Chartier? I mean, was she taken? Did she disappear, or did somebody, harm her and dispose to her as well as the car?
They are nagging questions that have been asked many times since the night Judy Chartier and her car simply vanished. The night was June 5th, 1982. Judy attended a party with her boyfriend at a home in Billerica.
And yeah, I knew she was going. I didn't want her to, but I knew she was. She told me she was.
As the party wore on, police say there was trouble for Judy and her boyfriend when two other guys at the party noticed her.
She was a little bit older than her boyfriend, and these gentlemen, they were a little bit older as well, and they showed an interest in her. Obviously, she showed an interest in them, and the boyfriend was jealous.
According to police, Judy and her boyfriend got into an argument, so they left the party.
They left together. The way we understand it from the boyfriend, they worked everything out. She dropped him off and said goodbye, and I was going home. She was going home at the time.
The boyfriend told police he saw Judy drive away, even taking the turn that leads to her home. Less than a half mile away, at 1 o'clock in the morning, Judy's parents waited.
The muffler was gone in her car, and she never went by the house that night. I'm positive because it was summer. I was in the bedroom, the windows were open, I never heard it.
Since Judy didn't go home, where did she go? Well, one possibility is that she drove past her house and went back to the party.
Did Judy ever make it back to your house?
No. One of my boys, my oldest boy, was down at the store in Billerica, and he thought he saw her go by, going back to the party.
If Judy did go back to the party, no one who was there will confirm it. During my interview, Judy's parents shared a troubling memory of the night Judy vanished. They told me that while they waited for their daughter to come home, two men showed up at their Chelmsford house.
And one had a pair of nunchucks. He's swinging them all over the place. And I said, "Who are you guys?" And he said, "We miss your daughter so bad." He said, I was in love with her and all this.
And he was pounding on the side of the house, pounding on the tree, saying he loved her. He wished she could come back.
When those two boys came over to your house,
yeah,
telling you how much they loved and missed your daughter, did you know at that point that she was missing?
No. She just didn't come up. We just thought she was late. There's something screwy,
What do you think about that?
Just want to find out who done it and let them pay for what they did.
In 2001, Chelmsford police told me they were very interested in that story about the two visitors that Judy's parents told me. At the time, investigators believed Judy was killed and they thought the car was destroyed in a nearby junkyard. Sadly, Judy's parents passed away not knowing what happened to their daughter. And for years, this case was stone cold. But suddenly in the summer of 2012, a potential breakthrough. Bones were discovered on property a Chartier family member once owned. The bones proved to be animal bones. But the incident brought us face to face with Judy's boyfriend, one of the last people to ever see Judy Chartier alive.
Yeah, I'd like to find out exactly what happened and who's behind it, you know what I mean?
Roger Balcom told us in 2012 that he attended the party at this house in Billerica the night Judy vanished. He said an older man showed interest in Judy, and she gave him a ride in her car.
I always got a little jealous and stuff, so that kind of turned into an argument that night.
Roger Balcom last saw Judy and her car when she dropped him off.
Afterwards, she'd always drop, pull in the driveway, drop me off, and then go right down Elvina. And she'd call, let it ring twice, and I know she was home, But that night, I never got a call,
Well, 9 years after that interview, November 2021, the real breakthrough. Investigators find Judy's car in the Concord River, and the biggest breakthrough of all, human remains.
The Concord River in Billerica gives up its biggest secret. On November 2nd, authorities confirm they found Judy Chartier's missing Dodge Dart after almost 40 years. The very next day, state police divers recover human remains.
They did recover a variety of human remains. In addition to those remains, they were able to find other items, including a few pieces of clothing and a purse or card case that contained a work identification that belonged to Judy Chartier.
The development, a major breakthrough in this decades-old unsolved case. I stayed in contact with Judy's brother over the years. When the discovery was made, he told me, quote, "When I first learned the car was found, every emotion hit me at the same time. I felt like a weight was taken off my shoulders. Now there is the possibility that they found Judy after 39 years. I am feeling a sense of relief." The discovery of human remains near Judy Chartier's car sent this investigation into a whole new direction, and it sent investigators back to their witness list, including anyone who attended that party in Billerica.
This was a 17-year-old girl, and she went out one evening and never came home, and no one knew where she went. So it comes against the backdrop of that, so it is always a bittersweet moment.
Marion, is there any sign of any foul play here?
Not at this point. It's way too early for that. We were joined here today by members of the medical examiner's office as well as the state anthropologist, and we'll be working over the next days and weeks both to make a positive identification of the remains and then to see if we can make any assessment as to what happened.
The discovery of Judy Chartier's remains was huge for her family, but with answers came new questions.
We need those answers so we can finally put this constant wondering to rest.
I'll sit down with Judy's cousin for her reaction and ask where the family goes from here. And then the discovery would not be possible without the help of special sonar technology. The crew shows me how it works and the key role it played in this investigation as we continue this New England's Unsolved special, Finding Judy Chartier.
I think it closes old wounds. I think we're going to have to do a lot of healing.
For nearly 4 decades, Judy Chartier's family lived with an awful pain. They didn't know what happened to Judy. They only knew that she was missing. A recent discovery changed everything for Judy's family and for investigators who worked so hard to find her.
The dark, murky waters of the Concord River in Billerica. This is where Judy Chartier was for 39 long years. Judy's family went decades without any answers at all. They had no idea if she was a victim of foul play or if she ran off to start a new life. One discovery, one announcement from the DA changed everything.
It's bittersweet. It's hard to believe that she was so close all these years. To have it be she was so close to home is kind of disheartening, but it's also comforting to know that she was here all this time.
Heather Lane is Judy Chartier's cousin. Heather was born 2 years after Judy vanished, but Judy's disappearance cast a long shadow over her life.
I had a curfew till I was like 23. I had to be home by 1, and if I wasn't home by 1, my father would be sitting there waiting for me to come in the door. You know, when you have a cousin that disappeared and was never found again, this is, you know, what happens.
Well, this case is no other way to put it. This has really been an open wound for us in town and the department, but it always comes back to the family for us. How do we get to a resolution for the family?
Chelmsford Police Chief James Spinney is relieved that Judy is found, and he remembers the shock he felt when he saw the first sonar images that suggested Judy's car was so close to home, submerged in the Concord River for all this time.
When we saw some of the underwater photos and we were able to match up some of the items on the vehicle that matched, like hubcaps and front bumper design, it started to almost be a realization that, wow, this really could be it. After 39 years submerged in water, I just couldn't believe there'd be any salvageable human remains that could be recovered. And to find out that there was, and the amount that was really shocking. Nothing less than shocking.
39 years after Judy Chartier vanished, her family is now making plans to give her a proper burial. But soon, their attention will focus on another nagging question. How and why did her car end up in the river?
Well, that's going to be the key. That's going to be a lot of work, I think, in the weeks and months ahead, by re-interviewing, taking a look at all the evidence that's been retrieved, getting people's stories again. Maybe memories are jogged. Maybe somebody comes forward. I think anything's possible at this point. Finding her
And being able to put her to rest gives us partial closure, but not having the answers as to what happened wouldn't, we need those answers so we can finally put this constant wondering to rest.
When our special continues, we're getting an up-close look at the technology that made the discovery of Judy's remains possible.
I knew I had a car, I didn't know it was the car.
The crew tells me what that moment was like when they learned what they'd really found. And later, the break in this case having a major impact on relatives in other unsolved cases in our area. They're sharing their renewed hope with me when this New England's Unsolved special, Finding Judy Chartier, returns.
We felt at that time, yeah, we have it. We didn't know it, but we felt in our hearts, this is the car.
Amazing.
And we were dumbfounded. I'm looking at him like, no way. Yeah, we had it, for real.
Welcome back to New England's Unsolved, Finding Judy Chartier. You just heard from one of the people who unlocked this mystery. The most common question about the Judy Chartier case is, how did they know where to look? Some wonder if there was a deathbed confession or maybe a cooperating witness behind bars who cut a deal with police. The truth is even more remarkable, and it involves two men, civilians, who set out to make a difference.
This high-tech side scan sonar device and this sensitive underwater drone, along with the two men who operate them, are how missing Chelmsford teenager Judy Chartier and her car was found after 39 years. Hans Hoog and Bruce Stebbins are civilians brought together by a desire to help bring Judy home.
I look for stuff, all kinds of stuff.
Hans Hoog is a life insurance salesman, but he also owns Sonar Search and Recovery in Exeter, New Hampshire. On August 21st, his EdgeTech side scan sonar located 4 cars in the Concord River.
I knew I had a car, I didn't know it was the car.
It turns out Judy's was the 4th car, the last car, found on the first day of searching with Hans's side scan sonar. It was enthusiast Bruce Stebbins, after doing some research on Judy's case, who first decided to look in the Concord River. A month after Hans found something with side scan sonar, Bruce dropped his underwater drone in the river.
Everything that we saw with the footage matched up with her car. There wasn't a lot of identifying marks, but what we could find really matched up with it.
We knew in late September we had a Dodge. It had 2 doors like Judy's. It was black like Judy's. It had a black vinyl roof like Judy's. We felt at that time, yeah, we have it. We didn't know it, but we felt in our hearts, this is the car.
Hans and Bruce reported their findings to Chelmsford Police. Hans asked for and received permission to scuba dive. Hans needed a closer look, but conditions underwater were difficult.
In more than 30 years of diving, these are the worst conditions, some of the worst I've ever seen. The water wasn't clean at all to begin with, but it was diveable. It was the visibility, 0 to 3 feet.
In 10 feet of dark water close to shore, Hans could make out what he came to find. He was face to face with Judy Chartier's car.
I saw the 3-spoke steering wheel and the window vents, the little triangular vents from the 70s. Everything about it said, yes, Dodge Dart.
All of it was enough to get the state police dive team on scene, along with Chelmsford and Billerica police. Soon, Judy's car was positively identified, and with days, Judy herself. Answers to a long-standing mystery found by 2 men trying to make a difference.
From the start, it broke my heart that, she's been missing all this time.
We accomplished the goal of finding Judy, at least finding the car.
Up next, hope for families like Judy Chartier's.
It tells us that it's possible. It's possible that she can be found.
We're breaking down how this discovery was finally possible after 40 years and what it means for loved ones still looking for answers in other cases. When New England's Unsolved, Finding Judy Chartier returns.
As much as we want justice and accountability, most importantly, we want her to be brought home.
Welcome back to our New England's Unsolved special, Finding Judy Chartier. I'm Bob Ward, and joining me now is Boston 25 news anchor Mark Ockerbloom to help us break this all down. And we just heard from Dorothy Goroshko's son. That is one of the many cases we've been following on New England's Unsolved, and there are so many families still out there hoping for some answers, just like Judy Chartier's family is now getting.
And Bob, you cover a lot of these cases. It's always gratifying to see a family get some closure, and I'll ask you more about the Goroshko case in a moment. But first, share with us a little behind the scenes of how this Chartier case broke open back in early November.
Yeah, I got the call late in the afternoon on Election Day, actually. I had one big story that I was working on for the 5 o'clock news. I was in Salisbury. I was about to do a live shot at 5 o'clock when I got that call from someone who's very close to Judy, that the family was just informed that Judy's car was found at the bottom of the Concord River. And I was told the VIN number on the car matched up to Judy's car. Of course, I still, Mark, had to get all that information verified, but first I had to do that 5 o'clock live shot. So it was, time was running out on me. As soon as I got that finished, I got to work. We got the tip confirmed by another source. We flew the chopper over the search area, as you can see there, and we were able to break that story in our 6 o'clock news. It really came together so quickly.
And your work was incredible journalism at the time, watching that happen so quickly. You've talked to so many families of unsolved cases over the years. You're already hearing from some of them, and you and I had this discussion off the air about how this is giving other families hope.
Mark, there's so many families who are waiting for answers just like this, and when they see a major break in a case like this one, it gives other families hope that maybe they can also get some answers. One of the families I heard from is the family of Dorothy Goroshko. Now, her case dates back to 1975. Dorothy lived in Brighton. She was the mother of 3 boys, and Dorothy, along with her car, you see it right there, completely vanished in June 1975 after a night out with friends in the Boston Garden area. So there's some similarity there, right, with Judy Chartier's case. I featured Dorothy's case on New England Unsolved last year. Now her son, Rick Goroshko, is offering a $50,000 reward in this case.
She deserves better than this, and she deserves a proper burial. And if this can help to get someone to come forward and to tell us, what they know, then so be it.
Well, this $50,000 reward, Mark, is coming right from the family's bank account. If you have any information, please contact Boston Police.
And Bob, that's a substantial reward, obviously. The question is, do these rewards actually work?
Yeah, well, they definitely can work. You remember there was a $2 million reward offered for Whitey Bulger's capture. True. That was actually collected on. That definitely worked. Rewards are often featured in bank robbery cases. I spoke to Boston 25 security analyst Dan Linsky, and he said that in this case, in the Goroshko case, a reward might be the thing that they need.
Wow. These cases are never over. Rewards will oftentimes trigger people with new information.
And Bob, let's go back to Judy Chartier's case, which is still top of mind, obviously, right now. And where do we go from here?
Well, we have to figure out what happened to her. How did that car actually end up in the river? On the forensic side of things, the state medical examiner is going to be crucial. Against overwhelming odds, Judy's remains were found in or near her car after 39 years of being in the river. I'm told they found substantial remains, and that likely means if Judy Chartier was a victim of violence, the ME might be able to find some evidence. Now, at the same time, investigators are going to go back to that party in Billerica. They have statements that were taken back in '82 when this was just a missing persons case. And state police, Chelmsford police, will talk to those witnesses again and see if they're saying the same thing today that they said back then. If someone is changing their story in a substantial way, that could be a problem. The passage of time is an issue, but it's not impossible. I know detectives have also been interviewing people who were not at the party, including members of her own family. So, you know, in many ways, the discovery of Judy's remains and her car, this investigation is really just getting started.
I understand why. It's fascinating to see how they're going about this. And we know you'll continue to stay on top of this every step of the way, much as you have in the past, you'll do in the future.
Absolutely, Ak. Thank you. And thanks for joining us to help us dig deeper into this. You can always find more New England's Unsolved stories online. We'll have continuing coverage of Judy Chartier, all of the other big cases we've covered over the years, and of course our podcast. Find it all on Boston25news.com under Unsolved. Thank you so much for joining us for this New England's Unsolved special, Finding Judy Chartier. I'm Bob Ward. For all of us at Boston 25 News, be safe and be well.